The Souls franchise has always interested me, from Bloodborne to Dark Souls 3, with the most recent release being Elden Ring. I knew at some point I would dive into the Souls universe. This is my story of how Elden Ring made me lose my will to live. This playthrough started like many others. I signed my life away to the gods, and then we were into the character creator. Souls games have never been my forte. I've always liked a game with a good story and markers on my map with waypoints to tell me where to go. But after putting it off for so long, I figured it was finally time to try Elden Ring. What a mistake this was. Why I decided to speed through the most peaceful part of the game, I don't know. It was probably my biggest mistake, only second to actually booting it up in the first place. I immediately got put into a boss battle, which I had various degrees of success in. Before we get too far, this is by no means making fun of Elden Ring, simply my inability to play Souls-likes. I then decided to go open a door to the outside. I was quickly shocked by all the grass and nearly ran back inside, as it was the first time I've been let out in years. After visiting the Site of Grace, I was introduced to multiplayer. I'm sure this won't be needed in the future at all. I saw a big man on his horse and I decided to run towards him. After fellow players of the community reassured me that this fight would be easy, I decided to go for it. If any of you have played Elden Ring before, I think you can see what happened next. The end is never the end, 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 is end, is end, is
Make it stop!
After dying to Tree Sentinel over 30 times, I decided to go another way around. Please keep in mind that at this point in the game, I still haven't been told where the sprint button is. I decided to go into the church, which is where I found the next Site of Grace, and a merchant that I wanted to stab.
Purveyor of fine goods.
After realising I couldn't rob him, I decided to go to the next Site of Grace. Upon running into some ruffians on my way, I also noticed this cave in the background that I definitely won't come back to in the future. After I reached the next Site of Grace, I decided to go fight this giant, which quickly dismembered me. I retreated back to the Site of Grace that I was just at, where some woman came up to me and reminded me about my lack of bitches.
But you, I am afraid, are maidenless.
The strange woman gave me a ring and offered to marry me. Given I play League of Legends, I started crying at this overwhelming proposition of having to talk to a woman. I left a note to the other players about what loot they would find if they fought the giant. Upon realising how slow the horse was, I decided this was a good time to find the sprint button. This resulted in me getting off and on my horse repeatedly for minutes. I gave up with finding the sprint button and instead went back into the cave that I saw before. Then I was greeted with some wolves that absolutely loved me. Upon rapid disassembly of the wolves, I found his friends and decided to give him the same treatment. I retreated back to the Site of Grace, which little to my knowledge made the wolves respawn. I disassembled them again and quickly moved on to the boss fight. Even though this guy is considered one of the easiest in the game, I was still incredibly scared. I did to him what I did to his wolf buddies, and then he gave me a cool talisman that I didn't realise was a talisman and I thought was a shield, for half an hour. Upon exiting the cave, I found the sprint button. Finally. I don't know whose idea it was to make the sprint button so that you have to hold down B on a controller, but I want to shoot them. I made the executive decision to run past all the people I couldn't kill, as this was the easier option. I had some wolves kamikaze onto me, but I just ignored them and ran towards the next Site of Grace. At this point, I was getting rather bored, so I decided to make a beeline towards the next boss.
In search of the Elden Ring. Emboldened by the flame of ambition. Someone must extinguish the
Margaret proceeded to unleash havoc on my rectum without lubrication for the next 20 minutes. I wish I could tell you that the majority of what I did was that, actually fighting Margaret. However, it looked a little more like this. And the sad thing is, this was the lowest I got him. Some of the deaths weren't even because of Margaret, I just fell off the map. I never did end up beating Margaret, but you know what? Maybe Margaret was the friends we made along the way. Or perhaps it was the depression we got afterwards. I did enjoy playing through Elden Ring, but considering this is as far as I've gotten, I haven't really played through it. I definitely want to go back to it in the future, but right now, my opinion stays the same.
I hate this godforsaken game.